Well, hello, Viva El Birdos. It is good to be with you, and we are here with the podcast team for another VEB podcast, this time coming off of the general manager meetings, which I believe were in Arizona, and were infected with a virus. So everyone, how's your stomach doing? You guys doing okay? No, trips to the bathroom every 15 minutes or anything like that?
There's a virus at
Yeah.
the. I
Yeah.
didn't hear about that.
Yep. It was something. So, yep.
Oh wow, it's kind of funny to like imagine all these
Yeah.
like general managers are like trying to do these meetings and can't.
Even the wealthy can,
Yeah,
have intestinal distress, apparently.
yeah.
Well, we are here with Blake and Gabe and Heather. How's everyone's winter been going? Blake, how are you enjoying your fall over there? And where are you, Ohio?
Yeah, I'm in Ohio. Well, it's technically still fall, but my wife decorated for Christmas on like November 1st, so it's basically winter in my mind now.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, Merry Christmas, Blake.
I'm confused because it was 80 degrees the last 3 days in St. Louis. So I don't, when you say winter, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been like 50 something here, so a little bit of a difference.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
How are you
St.
doing
Louis,
otherwise,
though.
Blake, besides the hot weather? You doing, Gabe, you doing okay, man?
Oh yeah, I'm doing great.
Good. Good. And Heather, welcome home from work.
Yes, I know. I was rushing here. I got lost track of time. I got my setup behind me is a futon that I've been sleeping on because my old dog can't go up the stairs anymore. So I've moved my life downstairs. So that's what this all is.
Yeah.
The
What's the name
chaos
of your dog
beyond.
again? The old one?
My old dog is named Kane,
Okay.
like Matt Kane,
Oh,
or
Matt Cain. I wonder if it was Matt Cain or Dean Cain. I thought it might be a
say,
Dean
or
Cain.
Lorenzo Kane. Yeah, Cain, like Cain and Abel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's sleeping right next to me. Hopefully he's feeling okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure this baseball offseason talk will perk him up. So,
Yes, I know. He does love baseball off-season talk, so
yeah,
he's
that's the
very
best kind of
excited.
talk. I know my dog is just wishing she could be down here with us to talk about the general manager meetings. So, anyway, well, let's jump into it. We have some news kind of coming to us from the GM meetings. Now, the GM meetings are not the winter meetings. It's where offseason moves sort of begin and where agents like Boris begin to talk all kinds of stuff about what should happen that probably won't happen. But all of the evidence is pointing towards the pitching market being more expensive than everyone hoped and more competitive than Cardinals fans might have, I guess, feared because there's no hitting on the market, but there's only pitching on the market. There's fairly deep pitching on the market, but every team out there needs pitching. So a saturated market with lots of competition and nothing on the hitting side. How is that going to affect the Cardinals' approach? And we'll just start with Gabe. What do you think, man, based on what we're hearing and the Cardinals' chances to be able to fulfill their rotation?
To the extent that it may change the Cardinals' plan, maybe some of their bats are a little bit more valuable than we anticipated because it's a scarce resource, so they can get maybe a little bit better of a return than otherwise. Maybe like Tyler O'Neill has more trade value than we anticipate because there's nobody like that on the market. I mean, except for maybe Cody Bellinger, who carries his own problems. But as far as like how they're going to construct the rotation, I feel like they probably maybe slightly anticipated something like this happening anyway. And they have, contingencies for if the price of the starters goes like, okay, so a 3-1 guy will cost 25 million a year or whatever. So then we'll do this or whatever. So I think they probably have a lot of contingencies in mind. So I don't know if it actually affects what they will do.
I think that's a really great point. I hadn't thought about that, honestly, about the fact that if there's no hitting, the thing that we have to trade is hitting. So there you have a potential, way to mitigate the problem. So yeah, because we do have hitters. Now, I from my plan, a lot of if you read my master plan series, I was trying to get away with not trading from the lineup and using my budget to get it done. But things are kind of sounding like the budget might not quite be as high as we want to, and maybe they need to make a trade. Blake, what are you thinking about what we're hearing out of there?
Yeah, I'm with Gabe on that. And I think just to continue on the trade talk, like who's the top outfielder on the market? It's Bellinger and then is it Kiermaier after that? Like
It might be. Yeah.
so when we think about the Cardinals being able to trade Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson, like O'Neill has the upside and the cheaper contract. Carlson has, I mean, upside and years of control. Like those guys, all of a sudden, despite their issues, I think become more valuable, and that's going to be really, really helpful as the Cardinals look for somebody. So I think when I look at what the Cardinals are probably going to do, it's some kind of expensive free agent starter. Probably going to be like a Sonny Gray, could be Aaron Nola. Yamamoto's probably too expensive, and then it's probably a trade for the second guy, and then just kind of a back end guy coming in free agency or via trade for the third.
Yeah. So just by the way, I pulled up MLB's top 25 free agents for this year, right? Just a random list, so don't worry about the order. Bellinger's fairly high. Now, I think Bellinger's overrated in this market. If you look at his StatCast stuff, it's not exciting. Then all the way down, the 9th best player on the market, the 2nd best hitter is JD Martinez. So you're talking a pure DH there, pretty much. And then Matt Chapman, age 31, Jorge Soler, and Jung Ho Lee.
The Korean.
So I mean, you get down in quality pretty fast. So yeah, someone like Tyler O'Neill could have a lot of value on the market. Someone like Carlson with years of control and center field ability too. I mean, Heather, what are you thinking? You've been busy, you've been around. What are you thinking about the market and the Cardinals offseason so far?
Oh gosh. Well, what we kind of just talked about was one of the when you asked Gabe about what the lack of hitters, what that means for the Cardinals and stuff. I was thinking the same thing, that it sounds like they have some hitters to trade. I know we have one question coming up later on asking about the Cardinals keeping Burleson, O'Neill, and Carlson, and what the likelihood of that is. Well, I guess it depends, but I would almost say that if hitters are more valuable, that would be an angle that the Cardinals might look at exploring, or an avenue.
Yeah. So we might talk about that a little bit later. I think all of our focus so far, not all of it, but has been on sort of the lower end trades around the site and on the free agents. But we might start thinking a little bit more about your Dylan Ceases and guys like that would take some pretty hefty hitters to get, some of the Seattle guys. So let's jump now then to the plan, right? However you want to put that. And Mozeliak talking this week, and I won't say that he's back down from it, but early in the offseason and late in summer, he was pretty deliberate. Three starters. Then Zach Thompson started throwing the ball pretty well, and I would like to talk about Zach Thompson at some point during today. So hopefully we'll get to that. If not, we'll make a whole podcast on like the 5th rotation spot later. But Thompson started throwing pretty well, and Libertor's around, and then towards the end of the season, and Gersh was kind of like, well, maybe 2, and then this week we're seeing Mozeliak saying at least 2, and I think that's the key. Instead of definitely 3, he's to at least 2. Not closing the door on the 3rd, but talking about a swingman, talking about someone who could partner up with Thompson. And I'm just wondering if you guys think that's a reaction to the market that he's seeing, if that's a reaction to the cost, or if you guys think that 2 starters is good enough. So let me know, because my thoughts. Everyone knows my thoughts at this point. I'm 3 starters all the way, not because I don't like Thompson. I just think that Thompson makes that perfect number 6 starter who's going to end up making 20 or 25 starts regardless, right? So I'll start with the middle. I'll start with Gabe. 3 starters, 2 starters, and how do you make that determination based on the talent that you have?
Well, I don't necessarily think that was in a reaction to the market, just because, or maybe they saw the market coming earlier than it's been reported.
Yeah,
because they were kind of backtracking well before the press conference, I thought. But I mean, I think part of it is just like they're looking at what they can do with the budget, with the players they have, and they're probably thinking like 3 starters is kind of a lot to ask for here, and maybe maybe we want to splurge on Yamamoto, and then we clearly don't have enough budget for 2 other starters, and they just don't know like exactly what they're going to do right now, so they're kind of like trying to react to what they can do. And if after they've had 2 starters, then maybe they'll think about a third starter. I don't think they'll get one, but or maybe they think we need to put a little bit of resources into some reliever. I don't know, but yeah, I tend to think it's Zach Thompson did have a lot to do with it though, because he did pitch a lot better than I think most of us expected. So they're probably like, well, I'm okay with him as the fifth starter, and then hopefully, when we need those other innings, Roby will be ready, or Graceffa will be ready, or Kloffenstein, or Sam Roberse. Like maybe they're just looking at the pure amount of arms that are going to be in Triple A. Think surely one of these guys can get promoted when we need an arm. I don't know.
But isn't that, I mean, my problem with that is that they also said very, very intentionally, our problem last year, this is a paraphrase, was assuming that we had enough depth, right? And so now you're talking about a situation where, I mean, last year they had five, I wouldn't say proven, but they had five starters. I mean, Wainwright was the fifth starter. You're talking about going from Wainwright to Zach Thompson, who has like, what, 8 good starts last year, not that many, honestly, and had a pretty bad run in AAA. So I like the peripherals. I'm not going to try to discount Thompson, but going from a solid 5 that could give you 175 innings to 4 that might be able to do that, and then a 5th that I don't personally think can throw more than 145 innings next year. There's no way that Zach Thompson is going to go from 120 innings to 175 and his arm is going to hold up. I don't see how that's possible. So if he's your 5th, then you already know that you got a platoon in the 5th spot. So you're guaranteeing Kloffenstein, Robersi, Rom, somebody a lot of innings, even more when someone gets hurt.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that we should get 3 starters, by the way. It's just that I'm aware of their perspective. And also to a certain level, though, at some point, we're going to need some of these guys in AAA to actually pitch well in the major leagues, whether or not it happens this year or next year, because we can't just keep using free agents, because that's just not the way the Cardinals are built. So like they're going to have to prove themselves at some point, and maybe that's their attitude. Like next year is as good as any. I don't know.
Blake, what do you think, man?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you guys said. Like, I think the Cardinals do need 3 starters. I think by saying at least 2, they're just giving themselves room to maneuver. So, like Gabe said, literally, if they bring in Yamamoto, they're not really going to sign anybody else that's big. Like, you sign Yamamoto, you sign like a 5th starter. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So I think they just want to give themselves room to maneuver, not knowing how the market's going to shake out yet. But I do think if they go into the season with Zach Thompson as the 5th starter, that rotation is going to be in shambles at some point in the season, because you're going to bring in, if you have Zach Thompson as your 5th starter, I don't even know who you want your 6th to be. You have Steven Matz, who gets hurt all the time. If you bring in Tyler Glasnow, he gets hurt all the time. If you bring in Yamamoto, he's adjusting from a Japanese schedule and he's like 5'8", so there's injury risk.
Yeah.
Even the same thing with Imanaga. Like pitchers just tend to break anyways. So I would be much more comfortable with Zach Thompson as like the 6th or even the 7th starter. And especially, I would really love to see the Cardinals think about a guy like Tyler Mahle, or somebody who's maybe injured, they can get on a discount, who can bring in some second half reinforcements when injuries are going to inevitably happen.
Yeah, I would love Mahle, but I'm not even confident he's going to pitch this year. If he had gotten his surgery in early April or something instead of late May, he would be one of my top options. But late May surgery, at least a 12-month rehab, sometimes 14, sometimes 15. At that point, you're looking at July, August, September before he's throwing. But yeah, that would be a great way to go. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think Luis Severino might be another guy who's coming off an injury who could be in a similar boat as Mahle. There's probably a few others, but like those are guys you can get cheap and just hope that they make a contribution in the second half. And if they don't, it's not that much money that you're losing.
Yeah. Heather, 2 starters or 3 starters? Be the definitive word here.
I think they probably need 3, but we'll probably end up with 2 and we will like it. You will get 2 and you will like it. That's what I think is going to happen. But I kind of agree, like what Blake said about them kind of hedging a little bit with saying at least 2. That seems like classic Mo speak. I'm kind of surprised that at any point he definitively said they were getting 3, because it seems to kind of purposely be vague, which I understand why, because then if they don't get 3, we're gonna be like, you said, and But yeah, I think we probably will get two. But it would be nice, I think, if they could get like a top end starter. I wouldn't be mad about that if they only got two, but got like a really nice top end starter and then more of a complimentary back of the rotation starter to go along with it. I wouldn't be upset about that.
So we all think Yamamoto would be awesome.
Yeah.
Let me just do a quick quiz. If they did, let's say, two things I think they could do pretty easily. If they did Nola and Waka,
Mm-hmm.
are you satisfied? Yes or no? Just go around the circle.
Nope.
No. I don't really like Waka though. So
Well,
I
pick
like
another
Waka.
pick another equivalent guy. A guy
Yeah.
that a true
I don't
4 or
mean as a
5.
person. I mean as a target.
Yeah.
He's
a jerk.
I don't mean as a person. I like Waka. No. I'd be happy.
So Gabe,
I'll go
you were a
against it.
no on Waka or a yes on someone like him, but not Waka?
Who
Nola and a number 4.
I think I want a little better than that.
Okay. Heather?
Yeah.
See, I think I'd be okay with that because we got Nola.
Because you got Nola.
I guess I'm just I'm used to being disappointed. So I'm like, oh, that's something you guys.
We're all so jaded. That's the
Yeah.
funny thing about Cardinals fans. We're like, they're only going to get one starter, and it's going to be Michael Waka, and you're going to buy season tickets.
Right. You will get Michael Waka, and you will like it, and you will eat your broccoli.
You will eat your broccoli, yeah.
No, I hate it.
Personally, Heather,
Put some
I thought
cheese
you were
on
going to
there.
say that we need 6 starters because, as you know, 6 is a serious number. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. I gotta get. Well, here's the thing though, with the cheap drinks is I care about offense.
Right. Yeah.
Not pitching.
Pitching doesn't matter. I just want my
we
cheap
need the offense to get 6 runs a game. So I
not
can get
mobile
my
on the
cheap
mound,
soda.
it's mobile on the run.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing that I want to cover. I want to hit the budget a little bit because there's been a lot of talk about this and people freaked out for a day because of John Ditton. Thank you, John Ditton. Well done. That was sarcasm. You could see it probably in my expression if you're watching on YouTube. Hopefully you could hear it on my voice. I'm sure John Ditton does a great job, but context is an important part of journalism. And we're not even journalists, and I think we all agree that context is an important part of our jobs. Yeah. So it came out basically that Mo is talking about, the same as last year when it comes to a budget, and people freaked out because last year's budget, at least on opening day, was 177 million, and they're already at 146 million right now, and so that's not a lot of money to sign, even 2 starters. But Derek Gould, as he always does a good job of clarifying. And so my understanding of it is that the Cardinals are looking at continuing with their current plan from last year. So yes, they sold off pieces and they saved money, and all of that happened from August forward. But they plan to carry a payroll of 200 or more exiting the season, and then entering this season about that same range. Now that's the part that gets a little bit sketchy to me. And Gabe, I know you've done this a little bit of work on payroll too, so I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So if they're entering next season with a 40-man payroll, final payroll, end of season payroll in the 200 or more range, what does that mean their opening day payroll is going to be? Because what I usually do is think about what their final payroll is and then subtract a little bit, or calculate their opening payroll and leave a gap here for their final payroll. But if they're talking about a $200 million final payroll, their opening day payroll might be as low as 185.
I mean, I think it'll probably be like the numbers you mentioned, basically between 190 and 200 million for opening day. And I think that's about what we all. I mean, I remember when we started entering the offseason, everybody was like, it's going to be 180 or whatever, 180. And now when people say it's going to be just short of 200 million, it's like, that's a disappointment. Now it's kind of weird how quickly that changed, but yeah. But yeah, that's still 50 to 60 million and more if they trade like Tyler O'Neill or non-tendered Dakota Hudson. I mean, there's little savings you could have here and there too.
Yeah. And I guess that was kind of my point, and kind of wanted to walk people back from the ledge. I wrote about it in a comment on an article, but I'm not going to be able to write about it on the site for a while. And so, like Gabe, I would just sort of say, until we hear definitively that it's going to be different, I would assume that the budget range that we've kind of put out, 190 to 195 million is my guess. I still think that's fairly safe. It
Yeah.
could end up being a little high, and typically people accuse me of being too low, and then I end up being high based on what the Cardinals actually do. So keep that in mind. But still, with 195 million, 193 million, they've got enough money to do what they need to do if they're smart about it. Which is what Mo meant when he said he needed to be prudent. You can't just spend money crazy and get 3 starters. They have to be smart about it, and one of them has to be a fairly cheap starter. But it's there. They can do it. So, any other thoughts on budget or spending? Good. I'm glad you guys find it as fascinating as I do. So,
Not that I don't find it fascinating. It's just that I defer to you on everything that relates to budget.
that's wise.
Like,
That's wise.
My thing would
Actually,
be,
you don't even need to. You don't need to
Jason.
like put that disclaimer at the end. You could just say, "I defer to you on everything," and that
That
would.
would, we can roll with that. That makes sense.
Right. Say, I'm sure if you were making decisions for me, things would be.
Yeah, I should be everyone's
going a lot
personal
better.
general manager. I think my life would be better if all of you listened to me. I will say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you heard from me. I laid out my master plan. In my plan, we end up not with who I wanted. Who I wanted was Aaron Nola and Tyler Glasnow, and I think Griffin Canning. Yeah, he was my third. That's who I wanted. That's not who I got. I landed with Tyler Glasnow, Eduardo Rodriguez, which now everyone hates. Thanks, Blake. From your article. I don't disagree with you, by the way. I just thought it was funny that everyone's like, no, Eduardo Rodriguez. and then Shota Imanaga. So I want to hear from you guys. We kind of go around the circle a little bit. We'll start with Gabe again this time. So Gabe, who do you want? Like, how would you fix the Cardinals? Who do you got?
Oh boy. Given what I think is like sort of realistic. So
yeah, be realistic. Realistic. Realism here is
right. I want Yamamoto, like clearly, but I just, given the Dodgers specifically, like we just can't compete with them. They're going to outbid us. So I feel like Aaron Nola is like feeling like a very Cardinals move right now for some reason. I'm just getting
That's
that.
exactly what I was thinking. Was that feels like a Cardinals move? Anyway, continue.
Yeah. He can throw like 200 innings, and that solves a lot of our like innings problems right off the bat. I know maybe there's some concern that he's not as good as he was, but I mean his floor is pretty high for anybody really. So I'd definitely do that. And then I would love to go after Tyler Glasnow personally. He would be a fantastic second option.
Yeah.
Because I mean he obviously has got an innings concern, which I think would be somewhat mitigated by getting Aaron Nola, which is why they kind of got to go together. So you can't get Blake Snell and then also get Tyler Glasnow, because that
wouldn't work. Yeah,
that could go badly. And at that point, you don't really have a whole lot of budget room for a third starter. So, I kind of like my Tyler Mahle contract personally, and he could be the fifth guy, or you could trade for, I think, like Paul Blackburn or somebody like relatively cheap, who is not going to excite anybody. He's going to be like
Walker.
Oh, he would be too expensive.
He wouldn't be a trade though, would he?
No, he's a free agent.
No, he's a free agent. Yeah, he opted out, I think, or something. Yeah.
Okay.
We would not have the budget room for Michael Walker in this scenario, though, because $8 million more, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know his market, honestly. But and then the third person would have to be like maybe a swingman, honestly, like Mo said. I don't know. I'd be okay with like a fringy 4/5 guy who you could be pretty sure will be competent, but very much not exciting. But that's what you'd have to do at that point, I think, unless you wanted to trade Gorman or something, which I would not be doing.
Let's just keep going the same order, I guess. I don't know why. Blake, you got anything different? Who do you got as your 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2?
So, I mean, obviously my number one by a very large margin is Yamamoto, but probably not realistic to sign him. And then honestly, like I would prefer Nola or Sonny Gray. I honestly think of them pretty similarly. Nola probably has the higher floor, but Sonny Gray.
Nola and Sonny Gray similarly. We're gonna have to have a talk about this one.
Well, Nola, I'm saying in terms of overall value for a contract, I think of them similar, because I would only want to sign one of the two, because I don't want to give up 2 draft picks.
Yeah.
So if the Cardinals want to go get Sonny Gray and then they want to trade for Tyler Glasnow. Obviously, there's some injury risk there, but you still get your high end talent and then your number 2 for a reasonable price.
Mhm.
If they get Aaron Nola, I don't know if they get Glasnow. But my point is, I'd be fine with either Nola or Glasnow. I really think the Snell contract, for as interesting and good of an arm as he is, I think that has potential to just age very, very poorly for a guy who walks as many hitters as he does, has innings issues, gets hurt. So I would prefer the other 2 over him. And I would say the only way I wouldn't go with 3 starters in the rotation would be if the Cardinals sign Yamamoto. So assuming they're not signing Yamamoto, let's go Glasnow and trade. I actually think Alek Manoah would be interesting, and not necessarily because I love him as a pitcher. I'm actually really confused as to how he was as terrible as he was last year. But he's still on like a pre-arb contract, so he would be incredibly cheap, which would give the Cardinals room to add upside at a very small cost, especially if the Blue Jays already want Dylan Carlson. So I think that would be an interesting one to look into, and then it's just sign like a mid-rotation back-end starter to fill it out. And if the Cardinals I'll add, if the Cardinals are going to go Manoah, Gray, Glass, if the Cardinals go with 2 of the 3 of Manoah, Gray, and Glasnow, I would be okay with them adding like a 6th starter, just at a relatively cheap rate, because I think there's a high potential that there's a lot of volatility there.
Yeah. By the way, Alek Manoah had a shot in his shoulder a couple weeks ago. And they keep saying that it's not a structural issue, but the guy's walk rate doubled last year. So either he put on a lot more weight, or it's a structural issue. I mean, usually when someone's walk rate doubles at that age, it's medical.
Well, walk rate doubled, his fastball velocity dropped by like 1.5 miles per hour. Like
all of that screams
5. That screams structural.
Screams injury. I would stay away from Manoah. I like if he was who he was, and there was no concern about injury, I'd be very interested. But I mean, we all saw what happened to Flaherty's command and control, and I'm not saying it's the same type of thing, but I mean it's like non-structural shoulder injury, and Flaherty's control is way worse than it's ever been at any point in the early part of his career. That's kind of just what can happen to really good pitchers with shoulders. So
I mean, if he's, I mean, you hope he's injured almost, right? Because that means if you fix the injury.
Yeah, if you can fix a shoulder, though. I mean, that my concern with shoulders is that you never know if they're ever fixed, especially if all he had is a shot. I mean, Flaherty's not broke, but he's also not what he was. And it's that shoulder thing that I keep looking back on, because, there might not be an injury, but it's a range of motion, a freedom of motion. The word we use for Mikolas so much, a kinetic pathway. It just might not be what it was. And that leads to small variations in velocity and command and control and spin. And that is to being production on the field. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think honestly though, with Manoah has the upside. He's like 3rd in Cy Young last year. If all they're asking for is Dylan Carlson, and I don't know if that is actually true, they could be asking for more. But if all they're asking for is Dylan Carlson, I probably just do that deal in a heartbeat, because as much as I like Dylan Carlson as a player, if the Cardinals view him as a 4th outfielder, we're basically trading a 4th outfielder for a guy with Cy Young potential upside.
Yeah.
So that's a deal they make, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
A guy who might have the downside of Jack Flaherty, I mean, for 5 years, right? I mean, that wouldn't not be bad at all.
Yeah, I think he's a really interesting target this year.
Yeah. Heather, you got any other names we haven't mentioned?
What do you all think of bringing Jordan Montgomery back, if that's even a thing? Like that I don't know. I don't think he left on bad terms necessarily. Like if he would be opposed to coming back, but I don't think that would be a bad idea.
No.
I don't know what kind of like contract he would be asking for, but I kind of like that idea a little bit. I also like all the things you guys said too, but that's the only name I can think of really that we haven't mentioned.
Yeah.
I will say Montgomery feels like a guy who's going to get like a way bigger contract than maybe he should, but my only fear, like approaching 200 million, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Which I'd give him personally.
I wouldn't give him that. Yeah.
Nola feels like
5 years, 25 maybe, but yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron Nola feels like he just feels, maybe it's because he's with the Phillies, but I just am like, you were supposed to be a Cardinal. You look like you look like you belong on this team. You just have that look. Yeah. Something about him just is like just seems like that's who they're gonna go for. I don't know why. It just feels like the move. Kind of
Yeah.
like when they were targeting Goldschmidt and Arenado, and I put out some of those like, let's start a rumor, let's start a rumor articles. You know, where you try to like
Well, it would be a
manifest.
great offseason to bring that back. They would go viral. I mean, people would be. What we heard, there was a rumor that the Cardinals are interested in
and I started it.
Yu Darvish.
Let's start a rumor that there's well, like we did those. I was like, I'm going to manifest something with Paul Goldschmidt, and then the next year with Nolan Arenado, and then that's who they went for. I'm like, see, it works. You manifest it by starting the rumor.
You could get on there tomorrow. You could say Yankees Cardinals talking trade talks. Is Garrett Cole in the mix? And just see what happens.
Just watch the world burn.
No, he's not.
And then but nope, actually he's not.
No, actually,
but now that I have your attention.
Yeah. We met Beater or whatever, Clayton Beater. That's what we really met. Yeah. Just like
sorry,
Garrett
typo, my bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got about half of our time left, I think. I'm not exactly sure when we started, so half our time, is all relative. But we did take Q&As from the crowd, and so we're so glad that you guys are so interested in asking us our opinions as if we have answers, but we try to. And so we've got, I don't even know, 6 plus 5 is 11 plus another 10, 21 questions to get to. Probably won't get to them all, but we will try to do the best we can. And I think I might be a little bit more selective in having people answer these than I originally said, because I had 5 or 6 questions that we were all going to talk about, but we've had good discussions so far, and that's carried us a little farther than I wanted to. So let's start with a few of these, and I'll just have like 1 or 2 of you answer it. From Edward Ackelbar. This is a great question. I love this one because everyone's obsessed with Yamamoto, including myself, even though I didn't even attempt to sign him in my articles. Yamamoto's agent says he will sign with the Cardinals for 12 years, $245 million, with a posting fee of like $38 million. Total cost is $283 million. You straighten your bow tie, and then you tell the agent, what would you say, yes or no, to a 12-year, $245 million contract for Yamamoto? Gabe, go ahead, man.
I mean, I think you say yes, but the way you got to approach it when the deal actually happens is think of like an ideal year number, and then be willing to cut him if he's like bad at 35 or whatever, because it's only like 23 million,
20.4 million,
20 million a year. Yeah. I mean, because we would all accept, like, if you think of it as an 8-year deal, we'd all accept 8 years, 160 million.
Yeah. Oh yeah, in a heartbeat, man. That would be great.
That's not exactly how it works, but like that's kind of the print. Like that's what the long contracts are for, basically, to skirt around the CBT, and that's what happened to Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, or they lowered the AAV in order to give him more money, and you could have like a price in mind for what you'd be willing to give him, and then a year in mind. Maybe he's still good by then, but yeah, I think I would sign that.
I think I would too. I think too, it'd give you an opportunity. That long of a contract, even a 10-year, would give you the opportunity to cut the value down early. So his first year contract might be like 8 million, 10 million, and then really climbs after there. But who cares if you're paying 30 million in year 9? That's 9 years from now. That might be jump change, So give him a chance to work the budget and get a number 1 starter. Anyone wouldn't do this? Any of you guys do a 12 million, 12-year contract?
I think we're all on board.
Yeah, the silence you're hearing is everyone staring at the screen, indicating their positive affirmation. So, yes, Yamamoto, we all want you. Odds of signing Yamamoto, give me a number that you guys have. Blake, what's your number on Yamamoto odds?
So I think originally I was at like 0%, but then I saw Derek Gold like writing about Yamamoto, and I think I'm up to, I don't know, like 15, maybe 20, which might even be a touch high, but it's obviously not likely, but I do think there is a chance.
Yeah. Heather, you got odds on Yamamoto?
So in my heart, I feel like it's not happening. Like my personal odds are 0%, but like a realistic thing, like maybe like 10.
10%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gabe?
I'll also say 10%. Maybe he like really likes Lars Nootbaar.
Yeah.
Best buds.
We'll send in the most charming player in the league.
Yeah, he is very charismatic. Maybe he's just that magnetic of a personality.
Right.
He's so Taguchi was like, you're gonna love St. Louis.
Right.
So if I take out my little calculator and I divide 1 by 30, I get 0.033. which I think is percentage. And so I'm going to go with 0.033%, not 3%. I'm going to go 0.033, but repeating. So there's a lot of other threes after that. It just keeps going.
Yeah.
Infinite number of threes after that 0.03% chance. That's how much I think he's got. No, I just don't think he's going to come here. I think they might even try to pay him. And I think that unless they really overpaid, Yamamoto is going to go to the Dodgers, or he's going to go to San Francisco, or he's going to go a team like that, because who wouldn't want to be on the coast if you were from Japan? So, yeah. Okay, moving on. London Bird, a regular poster. So is Edward Ackelbar, by the way. That's one of my favorite names. London Bird, regular question asker of us. That's great grammar. I write for a living. London Bird says, what's each writer's idea of a blockbuster trade opportunity for the winter? So we kind of talked about our stuff. Do you guys got a blockbuster that we haven't talked about? And I'm Glass now kind of qualifies as a blockbuster, but you got like one of these number 2, number 1 Yamamoto, not Yamamoto, but like Dylan Cease, Logan Gilbert, Scooble from Detroit. I'd love to get that guy, but it's not happening. So anyone have one that you want to share as a possibility?
I think in order for something to be a blockbuster, it has to be big on both sides, which is why I don't think of either Bieber or Glasnow as blockbuster trades.
Yeah, me either.
My, but yeah, Dylan Cease would absolutely be a blockbuster trade. But yeah, I don't have anything specific because I don't want to give up any of the hitters, so I don't want to do a blockbuster trade.
Is there a trade scenario out there where you guys are giving up Nolan Gorman? Let me ask it that way.
Well, I mean,
there is, but
realistic trade scenario, probably not.
Yeah.
Mike Trout for Gorman.
Would you guys do any of the pitchers that we've talked about as possibilities? We don't even know that they're on the market, but Gilbert, Cease, Wu, who else? I'll throw Scooble in there, right? So, would any of those? Would you give up Gorman straight up for any of those?
Probably not. I think I would have to do more research on these pitchers to actually answer that definitively, but I would tend to lean towards no.
I mean, I think he's got either more or the same amount of team control as all those guys.
Yeah.
And hitters are way better bet than pitchers.
Yep.
But even I know they have equal trade value, or maybe even Gorman has less. Yeah, that's just such a risky trade.
Yeah, and I think my hesitation with it too is like the Cardinals have other avenues to improve their team. They can go out and trade for Glasnow. They can take a shot on Alek Manoah. They can go sign pitchers that don't cost them Nolan Gorman. I would rather them give up $25 million a year than trade Nolan Gorman.
Yeah.
Yep.
Heather, do you agree? Are you in agreement?
I already told you I need 6 runs a game. So
that's right. Yeah.
I already said where my interests lie.
Yeah. So I'm going to say yes to one, and that is to Tarek Skubal. I don't know if you guys have looked at Skubal's stats. They are insane. 3.3 FWAR last year in 80 innings. So that's stupendous. A 32.9% K rate compared to a 4.5% walk rate. I mean, that's elite ace caliber stuff. That's Hall of Fame caliber stuff. In a 26-year-old with 3 years of control. So yeah, I'd give them Nolan Gorman and my mom for that kind of production. So Tarek Skubal could just have my mom as his mom, and I would just be as happy as a clam. So I don't think she's on the table though. But yeah, I mean, Gorman he's just so valuable with his defense basically coming up to average, and I think that's going to stick too. I'm not likely to give him up for what I would consider to be a number 2. Logan Gilbert's a number 2. Brian Wu might or might not be better than a number 2. Dylan Cease is a number 1. But he's maybe on the edge. I'd still prefer to keep Gorman in that scenario. So, all right, let's move on down. Ghost of MM. So do you think that Jordan Walker, and I'm just going to ask it this way. Sorry, Ghost. I'm changing your question. Do you think that Jordan Walker gets an extension signed this offseason?
No.
Abe, you're shaking your head.
I mean, I've thought about this question before I even saw it posted, but the problem is, to me, it doesn't really make sense for either side because of his defense. Basically, he needs to prove he can play better defense. So as long as the standard for his defense right now is where it's at. The contract, the Cardinals are only going to offer contract based off the assumption that he's bad at defense, because that would be like the logical thing to do, really. So Walker, once he proves he can play defense, he probably increases his whatever offer he could get by a ton, honestly, because that's how bad his defense was. So I just don't think it makes sense for either side, just because we don't really know what his standard level of defense is. I'm saying defense a lot, but yeah, but anyway, yeah, I just, as much as I would like it, I feel like he can get a much better contract with just, standing in the outfield and getting the balls more.
Yeah, I completely agree with Gabe, but I actually think it would make sense from the Cardinal side, because right now, in terms of like actual production on the field, this is as low as Jordan Walker's value is probably ever going to be.
Hopefully.
So if we want to bet on the speed, and the arm, and the athleticism overall for his defense improving, now would be the time to talk to him. But the same thing is Jordan Walker also knows that he's very good at baseball. And if we look at Nolan Gorman as a precedent, he went from like 0.5 WAR in his first season to like 2.5, strictly pretty much from defense. Because that basically stayed the same. So if Jordan Walker goes from basically 0 to 2, that increases his value dramatically when we're talking about an extension. So from his perspective, it probably does not make sense to do this. It would make a lot more sense to bet on himself and then maybe enter talks if he wants to go there next year.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, good answers. Heather, this one's for you.
Okay.
It's the last one on this one on the top of our list here. If from CDB, if the Cards are playing 500 ball or worse at the All-Star break next year, will we see any changes in leadership in either the clubhouse or the front office?
Oh gosh. I think yes. Just yes. No, I think we will in the clubhouse. I feel like Mozeliak's pretty safe. I don't know really much about Gersh. I feel like he kind of operates within whatever Mozeliak wants, but maybe that's being, giving him less credit than he deserves. But I do think that what is the Cardinals manager's name? Ollie Marmol.
Ollie Marmol, yeah.
Yeah.
He's that forgettable, folks.
Woo, I think he's in the I think he's in the hot seat. I think they need to start putting some wins together. Because he hasn't proven, to me anyway, I me, I love to go off about no, but I mean, to me anyway, he hasn't really proven anything as far as like winning games. His first season, that was his first full season last season, or second season.
He won 92 games in his first.
He did say it wasn't. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I feel like that wasn't a great season, obviously, and the way he handled some things was not what I would prefer. So, in a losing season, when I feel like you would need the manager to handle things better, more so than other seasons, he didn't really perform as I would have hoped. So I think, and I don't know, I feel like they, Matheny had several winning seasons for the Cardinals and was on, had a contract for like 2020, and they let him go in the middle of a terrible, the season wasn't even quite as bad. So I don't know. I feel like this is a long way of saying that's who I think is in the hot seat. I think they need to win some games.
Yeah. Maybe
especially with the talent they have on that team.
Maybe they're thinking about, is his name Chain Bloom or Chain Bloom?
Shaim.
Shaim.
Like, I think it has like a weird kind of pronunciation to it.
Really, that's why you should listen to things and not just read things on the. Maybe they're going to bring him in as like the honorary fall guy. Oh, it's all his fault. The new guy.
Yeah. You do have to have the honorary fall guy. I forgot.
Yeah.
I think he was the honorary fall guy in Boston already. I don't think.
I think so, but he's a veteran, experienced in the role. You know, I mean, you want those guys in your organization.
Someone that knows how to be a fall guy.
Yeah, someone knows how to be fired. So yeah. No, I think you're dead on, Heather. I think Mosaic wouldn't go anywhere but up. They would just move him into a different role, and I think Marmal has one more shot, and then it's going to be Yadier Molina or somebody. So,
I was gonna say I agree, but like, there's a big difference between being 500 at the All-Star break and being like 5 or 10 games below 500.
yeah,
I'd be kind of surprised if he's let go for literally 500, just because
Yeah.
we're what was it? We've had a couple of years where we've been around 500 at the All-Star break, and then we just kind of went
Mhm.
off in August.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what was the question exactly? It was
500 at the All-Star break or lower. Yeah,
or lower. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like
but
who?
I think you
yeah.
got the idea. I mean, we know what
Okay,
you're.
I'm sorry. Did I not answer it correctly?
No,
Yeah.
you got it. You're good. Yeah. I think some of the rest of these, the next 5 that we've got on our list, some of them we've already talked about. I'll open this one up a little bit. I think we probably already covered it, but what is your surprise SP trade that the Cardinals will make? We've covered a lot of ground here. I would just suggest that take all the names that have been routinely mentioned in the media and then just sort of throw all those out, because those are like you're not surprised number 1, number 2 calibers. And there's a short list, but it's not a bad list of guys in that number 3, number 4, number 5 range that no one's ever heard of. Like when I first mentioned Griffin Canning, everyone's like, who in the world's that? And then they looked up their stats. It's like, oh, he strikes out guys 60% of the time, and not 60%, sorry, 60th percentile, and whiffs 50th percentile. And, looks like if he ever got, 175 innings, could be a 2 or 3 WAR pitcher. Look for guys like that, because there's quite a few of them out there in the second and third arbitration years, on teams that could be convinced to move players to get depth. And so years for years kind of deal, like 2 years of a pitcher for 3 years of Carlson or something like that. It's more possible than we think, and it's the kind of thing that we don't pay a lot of attention to because they're not well-known names. And I think there's a deal or two out there if the Cardinals pursue it, and it wouldn't shock me at all if they traded for a pitcher that none of us have ever really heard of and none of us saw coming in the media. Anyone have another name?
Edward Cabrera of the Marlins. I don't know.
I mean, I think Gabe mentioned Paul Blackburn earlier too. I think really anybody who's 30 years old and plays for the Oakland A's would be available. So
Exactly. That's a great, yeah, he did mention, and Blackburn would be fine. Like I'd take Canning over that, but dealing with the Angels can be messy. So, yeah, but that's what we're talking about. I mean, guy Blackburn at the back of your rotation be just fine. Not great. Fine. So, we talked about Manoah, so that's the next one here. Anyone? I had this question for Adam. By the way, Adam couldn't be with us tonight, and so Adam could answer this later on the site, maybe. But I'll ask you guys: any position player move, meaning a signing for a position player that you think might happen and surprise us? Do you think the Cardinals go after any position players at all?
I think there's a chance they go after somebody who can play center field. I think that's really the only position I see somebody like a Harrison Bader or a Kiermaier. Kiermaier's probably too expensive if they're going to put a ton of money into pitching, but
like
I could
trade Carlson and bring in Bader on a short deal, small deal, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I could also see the Cardinals, like there's like a 2% chance of them getting crazy and just committing to Tommy Edman as their starting center fielder on opening day, and then trying to bring in a shortstop to compete with Mason Wynn. But that feels kind of counterintuitive when you can just bring in a center fielder. But
yeah.
I think there's a slight possibility for that.
Yeah. I think there's a chance you could see like a backup or a backup middle infielder thrown into a deal. Someone that I wouldn't even try to name him. I mean, whoever, like this year's version of Edmundo Sosa kind of guy, someone like that. Anyone got anyone else?
Really?
Yeah. Right.
Jung Ho Lee, whatever.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one for Blake. Let's go with Blake on this one. This is from Crazy. In your opinion, what prospects, if any, currently have a realistic chance of becoming a number 1 ace level starter in the future for the Cardinals?
I'll throw out 3 names. I think the most likely is Tekoa Roby. I think he's the best pitching prospect in the system.
Yep.
And I would have to look at it. If we're not considering Mason Wynn a prospect anymore, then he might be the best prospect in the system. Unless I'm missing a name in there. But I would say Roby's got the best chance, and then probably Tink Hence and Cooper Jerpy are up there. And it's like none of these guys have a high chance. It's not like their median outcome is an ace, but I think really there's three pitchers in the system who have a chance at getting it as those three.
Yeah.
What about Zach Showalter or no?
I don't, not yet. I
What-
haven't seen enough of him yet. I don't think his stuff's quite good enough. His breaking ball looks a little bit floaty. But and his mechanics are a little weird, but also I think that helps him. So I want to see how he does more before I commit to him as having anything above like a mid rotation.
I thought you were going to say him as the third guy. I didn't even think of Cooper, honestly, because
Jerpy had a rough year, but he's still super weird. And I don't know if you guys read the interview that he gave to
Yeah.
Fangraphs, but like his mechanics are really weird, which I think helps him, but he also just gets crazy movement on his pitches. And I think that can be detrimental if you don't have anything to split it, but he has a cutter that's like basically zero horizontal break that basically splits everything in half and tunnels everything better. So I think from a stuff perspective, it's there. His command has really struggled. He kind of struggled to actually get inside on hitters at times this year, and he gave up a lot of homers because he wasn't locating that well. But I think from a pure stuff perspective, there's a chance.
Yeah, like I with Jerpy, just to put some numbers to that, I agree with Gabe or Blake completely. 14.6% walk rate, that's going to have to improve, and I think it will. I'm 100% confident that will improve. But 29.8% K rate, I mean that's serious for your first year in the minors. I mean that's serious K rate for a guy who doesn't throw hard. So you're talking about pure stuff.
is he going to double A?
Do what?
You going to double A this year or no? Not right away. Do we know?
We don't. I don't know. Blake, do you know?
I have no idea. I mean, they might based on how well he's pitching in the Arizona Fall League, but
I don't think I would. I think I would let him go A plus double A this year and just really settle in, kind of like they let Hintz kind of, stay back and get some innings.
I think he's a really good candidate to start in high A, make like 5 really good starts, and then get promoted in the first month of the season.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Boy, I want to keep talking about this because I feel like Roby, to get to the number one, his stuff is going to have to be a little bit better, but some of the rest of his pitchability is there. And I feel like Hintz is kind of have to learn some of that pinchability. His stuff is there, but he's going to have to learn that pinchability. And then like Jerpy, we just don't know about. Would you agree with that? Am I right or am I wrong about those?
I would maybe split some hairs and say that I think Roby stuff's actually better than Hence's. Which I don't know if that's a hot take at all or not, but like
it's super hot take, man. That's going to be all over the internet.
If you look at Roby's just kind of pitch metrics, his Tink Hence's fastball is fast, but it doesn't ride. Roby's got the velocity and the ride to it, so it's going to play better up in the zone. I'll also take Roby's curveball like over pretty much like 99% of pitches in the minor leagues because it's good and it's hard and it's sharp and it breaks a lot. Like anytime you see a curveball in like the low 80s with a ton of break, that's a standout pitch. So I think between the fastball and the curveball combo, and he's got some other stuff in there too that are really good, I would take his stuff over Hence's.
Wow. I'm convinced. We're running out of time. We're probably right about an hour, maybe a few minutes short of that. And so if we try to end in an hour, that means we're going to end in hour 10, hour 15, because that's what we do. That's okay, though. Nothing else to talk about here in the off season. Might as well have a long podcast episode. Let's just go Blake on this one. Or, I'm sorry, Heather, if you want to. Libertor. Do you think that he can make it as a starter?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I know enough to fully answer this because I was pretty excited when they first acquired him, and when they first acquired him, I would probably have said definitely yes, but it hasn't really seemed like he's developed as much as I thought he would, or maybe his stuff has played as well as I thought it would in the majors. I think he could stick around as a starter, but maybe not on a team that wants to compete as much as the Cardinals do. Let's put it this way. Could he be a starter? I think so, but would I want the Cardinals going into the season with him penciled in as like a main guy to count on? Probably not. That probably wouldn't be the sign of like a strong season. Not yet, anyway.
This is always a bad game to play with you guys because you check stats and you follow things. What do you think Matthew Liberatore's F-WAR was this season in 61 innings?
Negative. Right? Oh no. He didn't allow home runs, so it's probably like 0.5 or something, right?
Like 0.8 or 0.7 probably.
Blake, you're dead on. 0.8. 0.8 in 61 innings. Now, some of those are relief, but not very many of them. And 0.8 in 61. I mean, you don't want to do the whole projection thing to 200. That's not fair. But I mean, for a 150, that's almost a 2-WAR pitcher. I mean, it's surprising. I guess my point is that it's surprising. He seemed a lot worse than that, and it's because his FIP is quite a bit better than his ERA. Chalk that up to whatever you want, but he lost a whole run worth of value from his ERA to his FIP. So it's putting a lot of pressure on his FIP, but 4.28 FIP is exactly what he was predicted to have by Zips coming into the season, or close to, and so, it just depends on how much you trust that.
I mean, I don't hate pointing this out because I'm a Liberatore defender, but it's almost entirely because he got lucky on home runs, right? Because his xFIP, the neutral stat for home runs, was awful.
5.0. Yeah, 5.0. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he did get lucky on home runs, and his K rate is under 17, and his walk rate is nearly 10. So that's not good. So
I thought his K rate would be better.
It should be, and I think it will be in the like Steamer thinks it's going to be, and I think it would be if he stayed in the pen. I'm a big believer in letting him throw out of the pen for almost a whole year, see what he does, get some confidence, and then go from there.
Actually, 502 is not as bad as I thought, but it was definitely worse as a starter.
Yeah,
because it's good as a reliever.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's go lightning round. This is fast stuff. So one person, one answer. No long answers. And I'll try to cover ones that we haven't talked about yet. So let's go with the first one here from Bedivere. This is for Gabe. Gabe, I'm passing this one to you. Okay. Hindsight is 2020. Cardinals needed more pitching going into the off season last year, or into the season last year. What's one pitcher that you wish the Cardinals would have signed to the deal they ended up getting?
Nathan Eovaldi. And if we're playing hindsight game, we should have got Wheeler or Gausman. Really, like Eovaldi doesn't bother me as much as not getting one of those two.
Yeah. Yep. I know I just said one person, one answer. I'm going to throw in Kodai Senga. So you get one name. This is for me. I give this one to myself. From London Bird. If the Yanks want one of our left-handed hitters for the outfield, what's the deal? Well, we already kind of mentioned that. So the rumor and the reporting was that the Cardinals were looking at the trade deadline in trading left-handed offense of some kind for I've already forgot the guy's name. Was it Beater? Did we say it was Beater? For Beater. Yeah. Can't remember his first name. Clayton Beater, maybe. And so look up his stats. It's interesting. He fits kind of that Kloffenstein, Robersi, kind of like he wouldn't have moved into the rotation right away. He had more time in AAA, so he was a double-A, AAA pitcher last year. K's a ton of people, walks a ton of people, has crazy good movement and stuff, but has not really put it together in AAA. So there's some potential there. He doesn't seem like he would be a great fit now because he's not the kind of guy that could step right into a rotation. He's just not. So
he's also older than those guys, by the way, by like 3 years.
By the 3 years. So there's another factor too. But so not a great get. I don't really find it. And I'm having trouble finding someone else that the Yankees would be interested in. So I think that's a holdover rumor, by the way, from the trade deadline that might or might not have any teeth. We'll see. This is for Blake, a name that I've been hearing a lot about right now. He's in the AFL. Does Andre Granillo, is that correct? Have a chance to be in the big league bullpen by mid-year?
Yeah, I would say he does. One, the Cardinals have a lot of bodies to fill in the bullpen. Two, Andre Granillo is actually like pretty good, and I think if you have good relievers, you just push them, especially if you need guys to fill gaps.
Yeah. Heather, this is for you from Memphis, Mike. Hey, Mike, what is the likelihood that the Cardinals trade all three of Alec Burleson, Dylan Carlson, and Tyler O'Neill this offseason? All three, likely.
All three. I think like 25%.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, like, I could see there being some sort of deal where they have to, like, two of them, and then maybe they trade another one. But I don't think they're looking to really trade a lot of bats. I would like them to hold on to Tyler O'Neill specifically. So that's going to be it. my answer.
They would have to really love Richie Palacios. I mean, really love him.
Yeah, which who doesn't?
Yeah. By the way, you couldn't see it because this is someone's in an audio only format, but Gabe put a big old fat 0 on his face for all of us to see. That's why we were laughing. Not at Heather's answer. Okay.
Yeah.
This is from Adam. This is for Adam. I'm sorry. Adam's not even here, man. This is from HP Cards. I'm assuming he is on an HP laptop, a good old fashioned Hewlett Packard laptop. Any chance, or his name is HP, something. So, any chance of the Cards swinging a deal for 2 Mariner pitchers in the same trade, Gabe? 2 Mariner pitchers in the same trade?
No.
Not even if they trade Carlson, O'Neill, and Burleson for 2 pitchers.
I would take that trade, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that HP doesn't do here is he doesn't clarify what kind of pitchers. So it could be like a number 5 starter and a single A reliever,
Mm-hmm.
So 2 Mariners pitchers.
Robbie Ray and some guy in low A.
Yeah, it's possible.
Or they're actual Mariners.
Yeah.
There are people on boats that
people on boats.
Right. He doesn't say it's the Major League Mariners.
That's true. There's a strong chance that we just pick up 2 guys off of a boat.
He or she, HP. I don't know. HP could be anything.
As long as they've got a good sweeper, I'll take some pirates off of a pirate ship if they can throw a sweeper. All right. This is for Gabe from Londonburg. If the FO were to indulge me and sign or trade for a bounce back reclamation project, do you know why I picked you, Gabe? I know why I picked you for this one. Who would you be targeting?
Well, I mean, I said Tyler Mahle, but I really like the idea of Luis Severino. Is he hurt for part of the year too?
I think he is. I know he was missed. His injury was season ending last year. I know that. So I think he's out for at least the start of the season.
Oh, okay. Well, and I guess he's in the same category as Mahle, because I was thinking if he was healthy and expected to be healthy, I think he would get a surprisingly high 1-year deal, because that's what Clevenger got. He got 1 year like $12 million, and that kind of surprised some people. But if he's injured too, then I don't know. I'll walk that back a little bit. So those would be my 2 names, Mahle and Severino. I would love to have them and their potential, even if it doesn't work out.
So I make of this what you will. I think this is a great idea, by the way. Severino had an oblique strain. Where's this from? RotoWire. And he has progressed now to throwing in his rehab process and is feeling good.
Oh,
yeah.
So if you're throwing in November, that's pretty optimistic. This would be a pretty interesting option. Is he a free agent, Severino?
Yeah.
Oh, ooh.
He was not good last year, so I would imagine you can have him for 1 year. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 1 year, $15 million. Honestly,
not good with a shoulder with an oblique strain. I mean, obliques are not. Well, obliques are not shoulders, so they're not right.
Can confirm. Obliques
the one in your butt, right? Isn't that where it is? Let's see here. Where was I? I've lost my mouse. There it is. Okay. This is what happens when you have 2 screens. By the way, when I look up and that glare gets on my screen, that's my TV. That's where Fangraphs lives. This is for me. How much of fixing the defense will fix some of the pitching? Well, I'll put it this way: a lot, a ton, because the defense really was pretty poor last year. And Walker and Burleson in particular are probably 2 of the worst combined outfielders in terms of OAA that we've seen in Cardinals history. Maybe that would be worth looking up at some point. So it can only get better. And the infield defense for at least half the season with Edman and Arenado was also not awesome. And so we'll have to see how that goes, because Wynn didn't rate out that well either, but I think that's just going to be a small sample size blip. So defense should improve, and that should lead to the pitching improving. But it's going to take more than just pitching improvement and defensive improvement for this team to climb back into contention in the National League. There's going to have to be some riding itself on the offense too for this to happen. So that was, by the way, Redbird 16. So thank you, Redbird 16. My favorite name of all of our posters that ask questions, Tacoa Mockingbird, is fantastic. By the way, I don't know if you guys heard, but Tacoa Roby prefers to go by TK Roby. So I still am going to go Tacoa because that's an awesome name. So Tacoa Mockingbird for Blake. How much does the offseason work done by Zach Thompson Palante and Palacios change any perceptions of them going into next season?
So I think it changes my perception of them in the sense that I think there's more upside there. It doesn't change my perception in the sense that they should have like playing time reserved for them. Like I don't think we should hold back a spot for Zach Thompson because he went to Shred Athletics, I think is where he went.
Mhm.
Or like the same thing for Richie Palacios, but I do think that it could work wonders. I don't know as much about what Palacios is working on, so I mean, obviously anything can help. But like I look at Andre Palante, where the guy has just a really good fastball and just nothing else. He has the spin on a breaking ball to make me think he can actually throw a good breaking ball, and it's really loopy when he threw it. And he just didn't command it well. So if he can get this little Jordan Montgomery style death ball thing working, where it tunnels off the fastball better, he still uses that break to get good movement. Like I think that's something that could really, really help him get something that's not a fastball that actually plays well. He actually had one of the best fastballs in the league last year if you look at run value. So I think that's huge. And then Zach Thompson needs kind of a lot of help on a lot of his pitches, actually, I feel like. For as good as he was, his fastball doesn't have the best shape to it. It didn't actually even play that well last year. So I think getting better fastball shape will help. And they're actually working on like a split change with him to kind of tweak his changeup grip and make it more viable, which could be big since he really hasn't thrown any changeups in the majors. It's like 12 or something last year. So I think really getting a better fastball and a better changeup could be huge for him.
Good. Thank you, Takoa Mockingbird. And our last question, let's see, who hasn't had a question in a while? Gabe, maybe? Gabe, how do you foresee the bullpen for 2024? Do the Cardinals need any significant upgrades? Or do you see, I'm combining two questions here, by the way, Crazy and District of Cardinals, or do you see some internal relief options that you want to explore?
Well, I mean, I think I agree with you, Jason, that attaching a reliever to some starter is an easy way to do it. But I mean, I kind of treat the bullpen as an afterthought, to be perfectly honest. I don't like try to, because I mean, first off, you could have like Graceffo. Let's go in the bullpen for the whole year, see how you do, and maybe he becomes an elite reliever. We don't know. Libertor, he's probably gonna be in the bullpen, and I expect him to be an above average arm. And I think we're in a fairly good place in the back end of the bullpen, which is really what I care about, with Helsley, Gallegos, Jojo Romero, and Plante's a decent middle relief. As bad as last season went, I still believe in him, and he's making changes. So I don't really think bullpen's a huge need, to be perfectly honest. I know we don't have like a full 8 people who we feel confident in, but it kind of works itself out. And you can always go to some of the young starters if you're really desperate and just say, air it out for an inning. And because it's not like we're planning for any of them to be like huge impacts in the rotation, ideally. So that's my answer. Basically, maybe I was the wrong person to ask, because I treat the bullpen completely like an afterthought.
I think we all do. I mean, personally, I think
the Cardinals
especially with, yeah, exactly. And I think that they're considering the way that the Cardinals are trending and what they're having to do this offseason. Guys like Kloffenstein and Robersi and Rom and, those guys, just because of opportunity, are tracking towards bullpen arms for me. And so, maybe you hold out with Graceffo, try to keep him, in the starter's track, but Roby is coming up pretty quick. Hintz is behind him. Jerpy is there as well. There's guys with real arm talent that they're going to keep, in the rotation. So the rest of the guys are, I'm not going to say expendable, but you don't necessarily have to make sure they get 25 minor league starts next year. Mm-hmm. If the need is there in the bullpen, you can use them. And I think most of them would have a pretty good shot of sticking. So we'll see how that goes. Well, there's one more question that I wanted to bring attention to. We're not going to answer it now because we don't have time, but I'm going to try to find a way to get this answered. It'd be a great little off-season piece for us to do. So maybe one Saturday I'll put this together. The Duke asked, I'd like to know what your top 3 sources of baseball information are: blogs, Twitter feeds, websites. Our chat chain, I think, is the best source of baseball information, but you gotta be a writer to get on that one. So sorry, folks.
I love reading that. I learned so much.
So I would love to see us in the next couple of weeks, sometime around Thanksgiving or after. Maybe we can all get together and put our lists of sites that we check and put that out there. So Duke, I appreciate your question. It's going to take us a little while to answer it, so I'm going to try to go another route with that, and I won't forget. We'll get to that soon. So thanks for your question, and thank you all for submitting your questions. Great response as always. We'll keep doing this throughout the off season, and we haven't talked yet about what's next for us, and so we will, but we will have either 1 or 2 podcasts coming up. Probably after Thanksgiving, we'll either do like a winter meetings preview and then a winter meetings recap, or we'll try to get, if we can, we'll try to get like Jeff Jones or Katie Wu, live from Nashville is where it is, or maybe one of us will go to Nashville for the winter meetings. It's not that far, so that's always a possibility. Heather's excited, so we'll see. We should work on press passes, Heather. We should work on that. Not that I could ever go, but it sounds great to say on a podcast. So
I'm writing it down.
We are on the verge of having real content and real information to talk about. And so I feel like, honestly, that at least, us here, we have been providing some of the best off-season content anywhere out there in Cardinals land on the internet. And so thanks for your questions. Thanks for reading the site. Thanks for the attention that we're getting. Thanks for checking out this podcast. And we've got even better content to come. So stick with us, and we'll see you in a few weeks. But for Blake and Gabe and Heather and Adam, who's not here, wherever he is tonight, thanks for listening. And we will see you on the site. Have a very happy Saturday and a happy Thanksgiving.